What's going on, guys? Welcome back. It's been a long time. Today we're going to tackle changing out a couple of brake chambers on my truck. Been driving along, truck stops fine, but every time I'm on the brakes I'm losing air constantly. And if you know anything about DOT, it's not acceptable, nor is it safe. So sourced a couple of brake cans and we're going to go over replacing that. I'm going to drop part numbers for the intermediate brake cans, which this is the intermediate axle that I'm replacing today, and let's get to it. Alright, so we're going to cover the most important part. Need to be safe here. What we're working with today can kill you in multiple ways. So if you're not familiar with these trucks, or even if you are, first things first, you want to pull out your brakes and actually lock this thing down. If you're pulling a trailer, you'll have to use a red one as well. Pop it out and then come down to the bottom side over here, and your valves should be closed like this. And you want to open all four of them, bleed all the air pressure off. Also, never hurts just to go ahead and grab yourself a little extra insurance. Toss you a wheel chock in the front and the rear of the tire. Theoretically, if everything's working properly, you should have brakes holding on 3 other rear wheels while you're changing one of these. But extenuating circumstances, anything can happen. Never trust your equipment. So next off, we're going to go review the brake can. All right, let's talk about something else that can kill you. This brake can has a spring inside of it that if you take this thing apart incorrectly will either severely injure you or very likely kill you. It stores a lot of potential energy, and we want to be very careful with that. So what we are not going to do at any time in the beginning of this is touch this nut right here. If you do, it'll probably be the last thing you do, or you'll lose a hand, fingers. Be careful. So we're going to cover tools right quick and we're going to get started. I am not responsible for anything that you do with this information. I'm not responsible for injuries, fatalities, anything else. I'm just showing you theoretically how you might be able to change a brake chamber on your truck if you need to. I'm recommending you don't do this. Alright, so tools. I didn't have a 1-inch wrench handy, so I've got the adjustable out. You're going to need a 9/16, an 11/16. You're going to need a ratchet with a short extension, or you can substitute long sockets, but in this case I'm using a 3/4 short, 15/16 short. I've also got a knife out for removing the silicone that's very likely going to be on your airline connections to prevent corrosion per the marine standard operations. You're going to also want some kind of PTFE tape, or a lot of times I like to use leak lock, but that or some other pipe dope will be just fine if you don't want to use PTFE, and a penetrating oil of your choice. So first things first here. After you've already secured your truck, it's safe, you're going to take this 3/4 and you're going to cage your brake. This is my brand new chamber ready to go on. What you're going to notice is it is already caged. The bolt is protruding. So this thing is under a massive amount of pressure. I'm not saying handle this like it's a bomb ready to go off, but respect it. Especially if yours are rusty, you have to be careful with this. I mean, even right here is considered the kill zone, even with this thing off the truck. If it pops, I don't stand a chance. So what you're going to end up doing is rotating this lefty-loosey to cage your brake chamber. When it's all the way out and it gets snug, Give it just a little bit more. Don't crank on it. Just gently go a little bit more, and you'll realize you're at the end of the road. This brake chamber is theoretically safe at that point. But that's what we're going to do. This is the very first step. Don't do anything else before you move forward. You want to cage this brake chamber, take you a 4-pound mini sledge, something with a little oomph behind it, and standing off to the side right here. It's a little bit safer here, but it's still dangerous. Don't underestimate it. Take your hammer, tap, 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 tap. You know, not baby taps, but nothing crazy. You don't want to dent the can. The whole point here is to check your caging bolt and make sure it doesn't shatter. Make sure it doesn't slip. Make sure nothing comes apart, because once we get under here and once we actually cage this thing and remove the, I guess we'll call this the band clamp, once we remove that, we're playing with fire. We have no safety to catch it. So we're going to cage this thing first, and then I'll pick up from there. All right, so one other important detail here while we're caging this thing. If you're following in my footsteps and theoretically tackling this project, you need to watch out for this. While you start turning this lefty-loosey and backing it out, it's going to free spin pretty far with your brake set. And right here, it's going to start running into tension. Just now at this point, we're getting to where we actually have to start applying pressure to rotate it out, and not just by fingers. So I'm going to go ahead and run this thing out and jump back on. All right, as you can see, boy, if I was good at editing, I would make a lot of really good bloopers at the end, but I'm not. So as you can see, the bolt is protruding, the caging bolt that is, and we're going to do the hammer test. Like I said, I don't really want to dent this thing. What we're doing here is, if this thing's hanging on by a thread, or super fragile, or there's something going wrong, tapping on it, a lot of times will break it apart. And if it does, you're going to need to change your drawers. Probably go inside and call it quits for the day. But next off, what we're going to tackle here is, you want to take your knife and on your air lines, it's going to be covered in the silicone. Protects against corrosion. It's great, especially if you're in a salty environment. So I recommend putting this back on when you're done. But scrape silicone off, and on both lines here. We're going to go ahead and break these free and spin them off. Uno momento. All right. And once we spin those off, then once again, do not move forward unless this is caged and theoretically safe. Still never trust it. And this is where it gets dangerous. After we remove those two lines, we are going to remove this little plastic flag. There's a nut here. We're going to remove that nut. Huh, I guess it must be serious. Hang on. All right, we're back. So, as I was saying, we're going to remove this flag, remove that nut. There's going to be another one down here on the bottom side. It's going to secure this bracket right here. And we're going to want to remove that nut as well. When you remove it, this can is going to come free when this band is loose enough. In the can, the back portion of it will actually be able to be set off. Now remember, treat this like a loaded gun or a bomb about to blow up. Handle it very carefully. Be ginger. Take it off set it to the side, and whatever you do, do not throw it in the trash. If you're unsure of proper way to dispose of it safely and legally, look it up online or call your local truck shop or truck stop that has a mechanic service on site and ask them if you can drop it off to them, or get advice from them as far as safe disposal if you are not rebuilding this can and replacing it like in my case. So we're going to go ahead and take care of this and drop it off and show you what the next steps are. All right, let's talk about what you're going to see in here. Technically speaking, here you can remove just the bottom right here, the bottom nut, and get this bracket loose, but make sure it's caged. It has to be caged. Always cage your brakes. There's no exceptions to this rule. Anyways, back on subject. What you're going to see in here is your brake diaphragm, and mine is full of sand, dirt, grunge, and filth. That is what actually caused mine to fail. And I have the back half of the chamber here. I mean, it's nasty. This is supposed to be clean. There's supposed to be nothing in there. Also, the back half of this is loaded up with it too. Matter of fact, that is what caused mine to fail. There is a little breather tube that runs from the front to the back. This brake chamber plugs in right there. Mine are cracked, crumbling, falling apart, and they worked great on my truck until I took it fording some water and going through some deep mud holes, and as you can see, getting stuff in places where it doesn't belong. And I replaced just my diaphragms, seen here. It's just a standard Type 30 3-inch stroke diaphragm. Messed up my terminology. Anyways, I replaced these diaphragms. They're like $4 a piece. My brakes would still leak while on application. So anytime I was sitting at a red light idling, my air pressure is leaking down. Very frustrating, aggravating to drive on a trail. So, but anyways, that's just the reason I'm replacing mine. I scored 2 new old stock brake chambers for pennies on the dollar, so I would be a fool not to replace them. Anyways, we're going to move on to the next step. Right here, you're going to have 2 large nuts. We're going to spray those down. That's where the 15/16 socket comes in. We're going to spray them down. Actually, it looks like you're probably going to need a 15/16 wrench to get at this one right here with the arm being in the way. But besides the point, you're going to spray those down with a little bit of penetrating oil. It'll make your life a little easier, especially if you live in a corrosive climate. And then up here, forgive me if I don't have the proper camera angle, you're going to remove this cotter pin here. And I believe it's a cotter pin by feel. Anyways, you're going to remove that. You remove those 2 nuts. The rest of this will come off. Then you can reverse these steps, and we will cover that as well. All right, so here's what I was talking about with the vent line. Mine is missing, cracked, torn, and anyways, it runs from the back right here, comes over, ties into the middle, and then goes to the front. If you stay on the road, on the highway exclusively, I don't think you'll ever have an issue with that. But especially on these California trucks where they're just about all rotten there, it's a guaranteed failure point if you start actually getting in water and mud. It causes corrosion and a good failure point. So anyways, next thing we're going to cover here, you're going to want to take a backup wrench or a crescent and hold these squares on the old one. And you're going to want to take your fittings out, and this is where the Teflon or the pipe dope is going to come in handy. You want to put them in and index them exactly as the old ones were. and get them good and snug. And then we're going to start back reassembling this thing on the truck. Alright, so I got my fittings swapped over, and I have my fresh nuts and washers installed. I also have my cotter pin on and bent. As you can see, I actually left the chamber just with the nuts started. It gives me a little bit more flexibility to maneuver and get my rod set up. This is a direct fit brake chamber. If you are using a universal, it is very important to match your rod length and cut it appropriately. But in this case, the one that I'm using is a direct swap. Oh yeah, another pro tip. You're going to want to pick up on this brake chamber a little bit, and you want to align it. Ideally, you want to divide the distance. You don't want it too high, you don't want it too low, you want it right in the middle, where it's just right, and it will extend brake diaphragm lifespan with that diaphragm mashing against the, we'll call it the internal piston. It won't create a uneven wear pattern and potentially wear through sooner. So that's another important note. What I like to do is get the nuts really close, just about tight or snug. Gently slide it up, go ahead and torque the top one down. There it is. Lock the bottom one down, you're good to go. Alright, so now that we've got this thing mounted up, snug down, it's still caged, there's a safer way to approach this now that you have some extra hardware off of the old band. Let's dim this down just a little bit. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take the CTIS lines and bracket and wheel speed sensor, and we're going to put it back on that stud there, but we're going to leave the original nut in place on the new can and add one of the older used nuts, so that way we can make this a little safer next time if we decide to change this chamber and not rebuild it. Alright, so we've got the bracket on, good and sturdy. Next step we're going to do is connect both of our air brake lines here, snug those up. Do not put sealant on there, do not put PTFE tape or anything. These are to be installed with nothing on them. The sealing face is right here on the edge. What you want to do is take you a clean rag. You can spritz it with a little bit of WD-40 if you want to. Wipe that fitting down, inspect it, make sure the face isn't all messed up and scratched up and there's no dirt on it. Otherwise you're going to have little leaks there. I don't know about you, but I love the fact that I can park my 7-ton for a week and still have air pressure, so every little bit helps. But after we do that, then we're going to climb back out of the truck. Even though this is a new old stock brake can, I don't trust anything. Never trust a loaded chamber. And I'm gonna climb out and turn this righty-tighty to uncage it, and we are done with this job, at least for this side. That crusty guy right there that's already been replaced at some point in its service life is getting replaced next because it leaks, and it leaks bad. So luckily the rest of the chambers are good on the truck. Please note that I don't know for certain how your truck is, but my intermediate chambers are different than my rear chambers. So for whatever it's worth, I haven't done the research on that. When I cross that bridge someday and replace those, I will make a separate video and also tag this one for instructional purposes as well. But anyways, let's get this thing knocked out. Alright, we are about to uncage this brake chamber. And something I wanted to note, there is a little O-ring on the back side of that flange head for the caging bolt. Make sure it's there, make sure it's in place, make sure the seat is clean where it's going to be resting, and you're done with this job. After you carefully uncage it, you want to crank the truck up, build air pressure, and release your brakes. And if you want, you can shut the truck down and listen for leaks. You can gently mash on the brakes, listen for leaks. Works best if you have a helper, but you are pretty much done. So till next time, guys, thanks for tuning in. If this video helped you, help me out. Help me break that YouTube algorithms. Click that like button and maybe leave a comment. And if it really helped you, shoot a subscription my way and hit that bell notification. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.